Hi, this is Ushio, and welcome back to Sable's Grimoire. In the last episode, we kind of hung out with Dragon quite a lot, and we had our dreams invaded by our teacher, which was weird. So we're going to move on from this and see what happens next. By the time that I awoke from my slumber, night had already fallen. Just as Eris warned, the flow of time in the real world has proven to differ greatly to that of my dream. Rather than time in the real world slowing down, however, it seems to have accelerated instead. In the few minutes I spent with Eris, I've managed to sleep through all of my classes and meals for the entire day. Man, I'm really making a habit out of this, aren't I? Going to sleep during the day, missing classes, waking up in the middle of the night. Maybe I should befriend some nocturnal demi-humans. Careful not to make too much noise in the dormitory, I head downstairs and walk to the academy library. Even at this time of night, the library is illuminated and still open to insomniacs and nocturnal students alike. Wow, just when I was thinking that I should fix my sleeping habits and stop putting all-nighters, here I am once again. Oh well, at least this time I'm well rested. I ought to be able to get plenty done tonight. The question now is, how do I want to kill the next 8 or so hours? I stroll through the library while glancing at books from every section. There are a few that catch my eye, but nothing that I feel could eat an entire night away. Perhaps I should just continue reading Iron's book. I'm not one to abandon a book I've already started to read, and it's not like I don't have the time. I'll summon my terminal and search for the principal's book, and once I've located the history of man and elf, I open the book without delay and continue right where I left off. Okay, let's get into this history. Continuing from where I left off last time, I begin to read from the moment when those hunting Bartholomew had been slaughtered. The villagers, all skilled in either magic or archery, have slain the witch-hunting humans without hesitation. Bartholomew is stunned. He looks around at the villagers, feeling both terror and joy as he does. Though he might be a mage, he cannot hope to measure up to these beings, not in the slightest. As a mere human, his talent for magic cannot be compared to that of an elf. Even if he were to train for his entire life, he'd never catch up. Especially not to the village leader, the strong yet compassionate man who saw past the difference in race, opened up his heart and... Okay, I know the author directly outed himself as the village leader, but seriously, Iron, tone it down. After another few paragraphs comparing humans to elves and elevating his own status above that of Bartholomew, Iron finally gets back to the actual events unfolding. With the wicked humans slain, the village leader and the formerly hunted human return to the leader's residence. They sit down in the leader's living room all by themselves and speak in human tongue. Okay, let me jump straight to the heart of the matter. What are you planning to do now that your pursuers have been dealt with? Do you plan on asking us to accommodate you, or are you going to be returning to human civilization? Okay, good question. Truth be told, I'd like to return to my home if possible, but I fear that even with those ruffians out of the picture, I'm not safe just yet. There is every possibility that I'm going to get arrested or assaulted the moment I return. So the hunt does not end with their deaths? That's troubling. I cannot have today's events repeated once more. I know all too well how sly and malicious your kind can be. I mean, yeah, I can't deny it. If they find out that you're protecting me, it's entirely possible that this entire forest is going to get burned to the ground. Perhaps I should allow myself to be judged after all. Now, there's no reason for you to throw your life away. If you're no longer welcome in your own hometown, then why not move on? Return home just long enough to gather your essential belongings, and then head in the direction opposite this forest. Keep moving until you find a remote location where you can be sure they won't find you. That might work for some people, but I'm not exactly the adventurous type. If possible, I want to go home and convince everyone that I'm not their enemy. I might be a sorcerer, but it doesn't mean I plan on doing anything bad to them. I merely wish to live out my days in peace. You say that, but do you have such a plan? I cannot imagine that those who would hunt you down would listen to reason so easily. Maybe not at first, but given time, I can convince them. All I need is a temporary bodyguard, preferably a strong mage, who can take care of any threats before they close in. Someone like... The young sorcerer looks toward the elven leader as his mouth begins to curl up at the side. You're not being very subtle here. I'm not trying to be. Please just hear me out. Before I was outed as a mage, I commanded considerable wealth and influence. If you agree to join me, I have no need for human currency. But you do desire influence, don't you? Okay, so what are you proposing? It's simple. You wish for humans to steer clear of your village, and I desire the understanding of my fellow man. If you provide me with protection until I regain my former standing, I will do all that I can to ensure that no humans set foot in your land. That isn't much of an assurance. We've been left alone for thousands of years, with nary a visit from anyone outside our kin. Why should we put ourselves in the spotlight now for your sake? Because times are changing. A lone human might not possess the mystical might of an elf, but together as a society we continue to advance at a staggering rate. Have you heard of firearms? Automobiles? We pursue science and technology with zeal that a magic adept race such as yours never will. It might take a few generations, but I believe that it's only a matter of time before mankind possesses strength far outweighing that of any other race. That includes yours, leader of elves. The village leader thinks over the words of the young human, insolent though they may be. While he doesn't want to admit it, the elf has realised himself that human society is both advancing and spreading. The fact that he himself, a proud, full-blooded elf, speaks human tongue is undeniable proof of that. Humans are leading the way toward a brand new world order, and the elven leader now has the opportunity to share in mankind's rise to power. Yeah, you make a good point. I cannot deny the tenacity of your kind, nor can I assert with certainty that I will be able to protect this village from the weapons of future generations of humans. However, if I'm to support you, I will need an alternate path forward, should you fail. Can you provide me with such an assurance? Yeah, I believe I can. As I told you before, I'm the one whose head they seek. The presence of elves means nothing to them. As such, my fellow men will not actively pursue your kind without reason, at least not at this point in time. And if I fail, then you may offer them my head. Whether you use my death as a means to end their pursuit, or as the beginning of an alliance, your village's future from that point on will be yours to negotiate. The moment that I finish off another chapter of the principal's book, I breathe a sigh of contentment. Even though I still have a fair way to go until the end, I feel like the more that I read, the closer I come to understanding the principal's situation. I wonder what Leisha's take on the book is. She didn't seem terribly impressed when we spoke about it the other day, but she didn't completely write it off either. Perhaps even Leisha can't verify most of the events in the book. She would have been rather young when these events took place after all. Before I can mull over the circumstances of Leisha and her father any further, a quiet echo reverberates throughout the library. As I focus on the echo, I realise that what I hear are hushed footsteps slowly drawing near. I turn to face the source of the sound, and to no great surprise, a familiar face is waiting for me. Evening, Geordie. And to you, Sable. What are you doing here so late at night? Another all-nighter? After spending last night in the library, I've given Geordie the impression that I spend many sleepless nights studying instead of resting. While my circumstances are a tad different this time, the essence of what she says is still correct. Yeah, something like that. I slept for most of the day, and now I'm wide awake. Wow, I can relate. Because you're a spider. I'm not a spider. Wow, you shouldn't assume that every trait a demi-human possesses stems from their race. Yeah, I'm sorry. Honestly, Sable, I'll forgive you this time, but you need to realise that not everybody's going to be so understanding. Even as she scolds me, Joru wears a smile on her face, or at least I assume that she's smiling behind that mask of hers. She knows that I don't mean any harm by my remarks, and for a mature, respectable senior of this prestigious academy, getting mad over something like this would be unsightly. As such, Joru quickly casts aside her displeasure and moves on. So, you're reading up on the history of the principal and Bartholomew, I see. Oh? I follow Joru's line of sight, only to realise that my terminal's still open. Oh, I'm sorry, I know it's impolite to look over someone's shoulder at their terminal, but when I saw you reading so intently, it got me curious about what you were doing. Oh, don't worry about it, it's fine. I'm a classmate of the principal's daughter, and I've been summoned to his office a couple of times already, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to learn more about him. Time well spent, I assure you. The principal is a wonderful man. Do you know him well? I won't claim to know him as well as his daughter might, but we have certainly crossed paths. By the time a student reaches their third year at Amadronia, it would be more strange for them to not know the principal. And of course, as the hero who built the foundation for humans and demi-human relations, his reputation naturally precedes him. Right, I heard something like that. I'm not far enough through the book to know anything more than that, though. I apologise in advance for the spoiler, but the history of man and elf doesn't cover the topic in depth. If you want to learn more about the principal's exploits, you'll need to ask him yourself. Really? That can't be right. Surely there's some kind of other source of information about the principal? You said that he's got quite the reputation for building up human and demi-human relations. How could he be so well known, yet only have one book written about him? That's a tricky subject. How's it tricky? Literature about him either exists or it doesn't. It should be simple to research more about him. Please don't blame the messenger, Sable. The principal has had many newspaper articles and reports written about him. In that sense, there's plenty of information publicly available. However, trawling through single-paragraph newspaper clippings spanning several decades isn't so simple a task. Oh, when I think back over what I know about the principal, Joru's words make sense. His story began over 100 years ago. It was a time when information wasn't as ubiquitous or carefully logged as it is now. Furthermore, all of the humans of that time period are dead, and most of the elves in Ain's village didn't and presumably still don't speak human tongue. Unfortunately, that leaves us with records pertaining solely to recent events, and even then most of the principal's work would be under the flag of Amadronia, not of him himself personally. That's a pain. The principal is a hard man to figure out. He's no more difficult than any other person. Most people don't have articles or books written about them. If you want to learn more about them, just ask them directly, or ask the people close to them. That sounds tiring. I'd rather just read his autobiography. You would rather read somebody else's entire life than talk to them? You're a strange person, Sable. I shrugged complacently. I don't particularly dislike talking to people. In fact, some demi-humans are far more interesting to meet face to face. But people tend to be unreliable sources of information, and they'll prattle on about unrelated topics at every chance they get. At least with books I can search for relevant information and skip over anything I don't care about. That's kinda, pragmatic, if not impersonal. Says the girl who hides herself away in the library. I'm not hiding here, I just find books easier to deal with than real people. I mean, I can't deny it. Then don't. Books are easier to deal with than people. You shouldn't feel ashamed for thinking like that. I know you're trying to make me feel better, but those words don't hold much weight when they're spoken by you of all people. At any rate, it seems like you'll find the information you seek this time far more easily by asking. How about it? Well, I don't know if I'll be able to answer all of your questions. I should be some help. Thanks for the offer, but I really don't have any specific questions that I feel the need to ask right now. I'm just trying to learn more about the principal before our next meeting. Oh yeah, you did mention that. Though that does make me curious. What's a first-year student such as yourself doing meeting the principal? Well, I'd rather not go into the specifics of what we discussed so far, but, say no more. I understand. If your discussions are to remain private, then you shouldn't force yourself to give people hints. Doing so will just make them even more curious, don't you think? I chuckle as I think about the gesture I almost made. Just as Jolly says, if someone started giving me hints about a secret discussion they were having, I'd only find myself becoming even more curious. In a way, telling them nothing is the next best thing to telling them everything, and since I'm not willing to do the latter, Jolly will have to make do with silence. Okay, thanks for your understanding, Jolly. Not at all. We all have our secrets, Sable. It's the reason why certain things must remain secret that's worrisome. Jolly? Oh, no, it's nothing. I'm just thinking out loud. I'll let you get back to your reading, okay? Okay. Jolly hurries off, with far less composure and discretion than when she approached. Before long, she's escaped from my field of vision, leaving me alone with my terminal once more. Okay, what was she hinting at there? After reading a few other books, none of which mentioned the principal, I decide to head outside for some more spellcasting practice. Just like last time, I'll take advantage of my solitude and play around as I see fit. This time around, however, I decide against calling forth any summoned creatures, worry I might cause the students in the underground facilities further grief. Okay, come to think of it, I should have used this opportunity to ask Joru to show me around the underground facilities. I'm curious about what it's like down there, but with no map to guide me, a chaperone would definitely be for the best. Then again, considering how cold and dark it might be in there, perhaps I'd better not go there in the middle of the night. As I weigh the value of my physical well-being against my thirst for knowledge, I find myself slowly making my way toward the underground facilities. Long before I've reached the entrance, the cold air has stolen the warmth from my body. Advancing proves difficult, and I'm unsure of whether I ought to continue. Despite my hesitation, I continue moving forward. My skin, now covered in goosebumps, loses its colour, as if to offer me one final warning before I proceed. Okay, we're going in, but alas, my curiosity proves to be too great. Okay, the moment I pass through the door, the unnatural chill running through my body intensifies. My hands begin to shake, and before I realise it, I've wrapped my arms around my torso. Unfortunately, my efforts yield no results. Shit, I'd forgotten just how intense and problematic the cold of this place was. Maybe this is a bad idea. I turn back around and head for the door. As curious as I might be, being confronted by the spectre of death tends to cause one to re-evaluate their priorities. Right now, living to see another day feels slightly more important than satisfying my curiosity. I'll just come back with Joru after all. It's no big deal, it's just a minor delay, that's all. Just before I reach the door though, a presence manifests behind me. Without thinking, I tend to face the being. The moment I see their silhouette, I think back to the conversation Joru and I had yesterday. In particular, I recall her mentioning the name of the acquaintance with whom she met. Figuring that I have nothing to lose, I decide to address the being shrouded in darkness, gambling on her identity just once before leaving this ice pit forever. You're Hira, aren't you? Who are you? I breathe a sigh of relief as the person in front of me responds to my question. I'm Sable, we've never met, but Before I can finish speaking, the figure before me approaches. At last I can see who I'm speaking to. Oh, it's the first year human. He must be Jojo's friend. Jojo? Is that your nickname for Joru? Hira nods. It is indeed. So, what do you want with me, human? Oh, a few things actually, but first and foremost, could you turn the temperature up a bit? I mean, I could. Will you turn it up? Oh, your question was not hypothetical. Of course it wasn't. Oh, I mean, I could do that, but I fail to see why I should. If you're cold, leave. The surface is more appropriate for warm-blooded creatures such as yourself. That might be so, but I'm kind of curious about the underground facilities, so I was hoping that I could take a look. That's it. Yeah, I nod. That's not a good enough reason for me to cause those dwelling here discomfort. If you wish to remain here, adapt to the cold. Leaving behind words as cold as the air around us, Hira retreats into the darkness. She clearly wants nothing to do with me. Even if I call out to her once again, I doubt she's going to respond. It seems that the only way I'll ever get a tour of the underground facilities is by going through Joru after all. Or maybe you could learn like a cold tolerance spell or something like that. As my second week at Amadronia Academy comes to a close, I awaken bright and early to find an unexpected message awaiting me on my terminal. Naturally, the message is not from one of my classmates, nor is it from my one and only contact, Joru. Thankfully, the message is not from my teacher either. Even if it's now daytime, a private message from a succubus is not something I want to wake up to. On this morning, the one who has summoned me is none other than Amadronia's principal, Iron. Wow, called to the principal's office yet again? I'm pretty sure I'm not in trouble this time, but even so, it's a worrying feeling. Being summoned by an authority figure is really a cause for joy. No, my luck, he probably wants to discuss something related to the hunt, or maybe he's decided to rescind his offer to grant me the privileges of a third year. Either way, I doubt this is going to be a meeting I'll look back on fondly. Always scary getting summoned to the principal's office. Hello, Mr. Principal, sir. Morning, Sable. And Ein is just fine, by the way. When I reach the principal's office, I find that the door is already open, and Ein is waiting for me inside. Furthermore, to my surprise, oh, he's not alone. Alicia too. What's going on? Is this about the hunt after all? I wish. My apologies for the summons, Sable. I told my father that your presence was not required, and unfortunately, it would seem that he does not trust my judgment. You know, that isn't why I called him here. I cannot act without good reason, Alicia. The word of my daughter is not enough for me to take decisive action. You've already asked countless students. You even resorted to asking teachers, and yet you're still not convinced of that woman's inadequacy. I'd admit that Sable's testimony is relevant, given his involvement, but even so, I hardly think you require his consent to act. Okay, is someone going to clue me in here? What action are you taking? What was I involved in? I have no idea what you two are talking about. You don't need to play dumb, Sable. We've already heard all about what that woman did to you. Indeed, I knew our teacher was a succubus, but to actually do such a thing to her own student? Whoa, 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 slow down. Eris hasn't done anything to me. Whatever you're thinking, you're wrong. So you're saying that Eris didn't invade your dream? That? Oh, yeah, she did do that. But it's not what you think. Nothing happened between us during the dream. Eris just wanted to talk to me, that's all. A succubus entered your dream to talk. I know it sounds odd, but yeah, that's what happened. How do the two of you even know about that? Did Raphael tell you? Yeah, that's right. Raphael has been keeping a close eye on Eris for a long time now, making sure to stop Eris whenever her nature as a succubus is about to run amok. When you and Eris were both absent from class, I informed my father, who in turn informed Raphael. Raphael entered Eris's domain and put an end to her actions, and then returned to give her report. I listened to Ayn and Leisha's account of what happened while I was trapped in Eris's domain. What they're saying roughly matches my experience. If I consider the passage of time in the real world compared to that of the dream world, then even the timing of Raphael's appearance at the start of class does make sense. The only question left on my mind is what Raphael reported to the principal, such that he would want to speak with me. Sable, I'm going to be blunt. I don't know what you've heard about your teacher, but honestly, her employment here has been under question for a while now. This year was going to be her last chance, and also my own opportunity to ascertain the truth for myself. The truth? About what? It goes without saying, but your teacher's a succubus. Even for humans living far removed from the all manner of demi-humans, succubi are infamous. In particular, word of their feeding habits has spread far and wide. As such, it should come as no surprise that ever since Miss Monty began working here, rumours have circulated about her. Most prominently, she stands accused of using charm magic on her students, engaging in sexual relationships with them, and feeding off them. Any one of these being true would be problematic to say the least. Add to the fact that her students say she puts no effort during class and, well... The principal averts his gaze, as a complicated expression appears on his face, and it isn't difficult to guess why. One of his staff members is the target of many heinous rumours. Furthermore, it's his job to uncover the truth of the matter, and then to act on it. I wouldn't want to be in his position. Okay, so how do you plan to figure out the truth for yourself? And why only now? She's been teaching here for a while, hasn't she? Does the answer truly elude you? Are you simply feeding my father's lust for conversation? Consider, for a moment, my placement in Class 1C. Figured it out. Your hint made it hard not to. Your father purposely placed you in Eris's class so that you could watch over her. That way he could get a reliable testimony from someone he trusted, rather than mere rumours from random students. Precisely. Of course, he never actually told me he was going to do so. Personally, I'd rather be placed in the class of someone more competent. Leisha glares at her father for a moment. However, Ayn doesn't appear to notice. His focus remains on the matter at hand, Eris's employment. I see. It's kind of troubling. So, what do you want to ask me? It sounds like you already have plenty to go on, even without my testimony, right? It's true. I've heard the accounts of numerous students and teachers, including those of my own daughter. Nonetheless, I'm interested in your opinion on the matter, as someone who has been approached by Eris directly through your dreams. What's your take on all of this? After having your dream invaded and spending a couple of weeks in her class, what do you think of your teacher? Does she live up to her infamy, or is it overstated? I mean, whenever we've contacted her, she's told us to piss off, and when she come into her dream, she didn't actually do anything. She's a shit teacher, but at the same time, she hasn't actually done anything to us, so shall we defend? I can see where the other people you've asked to come in from. Eris certainly is lazy and manipulative. She's also unhelpful and seems to detest her students. But as far as the rumours about her sleeping with students and stealing their life force go, I'm kinda dubious. Oh, even after she fed on you? I already told you she didn't feed on me. She just wanted to know whether I truly did come up with the spell I showed the two of you. That's the only thing she asked me about, and all she seemed interested in. I see. That's still a case of misconduct, but it's certainly nothing as severe as the crime she's been accused of committing. It's still a case of misconduct, even though all we did was talk. Yeah, it is. Entering a person's dream without their permission is a breach of privacy. Even if it isn't something worth firing her over, she's still going to need to be punished. Allow me to apologise on Miss Monty's behalf. This is disgraceful behaviour, and the staff of Amadronia should know better. I will see to it that she does not disturb your dreams again. It's okay, really. Nothing bad happened. Not to me, at least. Not to you? I wasn't focusing on the two of them at the time, so I didn't catch everything that was said, but when I looked back afterwards, I realised that something was off about that encounter. The entire time that we were in the dream together, Raphael was provoking and harassing Eris. At first, I didn't think anything of it, but then I remembered the time when Raphael introduced herself to the class. Oh yeah, come to think of it, I thought there might be some bad blood between those two. Bad blood? What did you two see exactly? When Raphael came to the classroom, she spent the entire time making snide remarks about the teacher. While Eris did respond in turn, it seemed to me like she was acting defensive rather than provocative. My thoughts exactly, and it was the same in my dream. Even when Eris was first to strike, it seemed more like conditioned behaviour than actual malice. If they were students, I would think that she had been bullied repeatedly by Raphael and was now acting cautious around her or taking preemptive action. I'm not saying that any of this excuses Eris's behaviour. No, I understand. Thanks, Sable. You've given me a lot to think about. Perhaps this matter isn't so black and white after all. The principal unveils a relieved smile as he hears more about his employee's situation. Eris might not be a good teacher or even a good person, but I have a hard time seeing her as a villain. If her crass attitude and foul behaviour are the result of her being antagonised, then she deserves an opportunity to defend herself and to return to her original path. Even Leisha agreed, so that's good. After speaking with Aina and Leisha, I make my way to class. Despite the fact that Leisha and I are in the same class, she does not come with me. It seems she still has a few heated words to say to her father, none of which mandate my presence. And so, with my head now full of thoughts pertaining to my teacher, I enter my classroom, take my seat, and wait for the next lesson to begin. Oh, you've come at last, my dear Sable. Oh, how I have anxiously awaited your arrival. Oh, what? I shudder as a familiar entity appears before me. As if sensing my desire to sit by myself and rest, Hel shuffles closer, bringing her formless face close to mine. Morning, Hel. What's up? Nothing much, my love. That is, aside from my heart rate, body temperature, and egg count. What the hell? For crying out loud, Hel, you know this isn't what I meant. But it's what you asked, and it is most assuredly the truth. I don't care. Please just stop talking. How strange. I thought that any talk hinting at ovulation would ignite your bestial lust and cause you to lose control. Do you not wish to push me down and have your way with me? Damn it, Hel, what did I just say? I'm not going to be pushing anyone down, okay? Oh, so you're the type who prefers to be dominated. I had initially suspected as much, but after you broke free from my control, I began to think differently. Damn, this is going nowhere. Maybe I should just leave class altogether. There's a fair chance Eris won't show up anyway, considering what I and Alicia wanted to talk about. Before Hel can annoy me any further though, I decide to act on my impulse and skip class. I stand up, walk around Hel and the other students, and make my way toward the door. That's it. Bailed. I breathe a lengthy sigh of relief as I exit class. No longer surrounded by my noisy classmates, I can feel like I can be at ease once more, if only temporarily. Honestly, why do I subject myself to this? I get far more work done when I study on my own than when I attend class, and when I'm done, my blood pressure isn't anywhere near as high either. Is there even a point to me attending classes like this? I leave my classroom in a huff as Hel's personality begins to get on my nerves. Before I can get too worked up, however, I find myself standing still in the middle of the hallway, sighing and hanging my head. Okay, what am I talking about? Interacting with demi-humans is supposed to be one of the perks of coming to Amadronia. It isn't something I should be annoyed about. Hel and I might not mix particularly well, but I can at least appreciate her intent. Just now, I'm sure Hel was simply trying to lighten my mood. It's not like she wants to irritate me. I'm the one who has the problem, not her. I'm just a sleep-deprived nerd with subpar social skills. I shouldn't judge her for trying to be friendly. I briefly consider returning to class once more to apologise for my attitude. Given that I'm still irritable as before, however, I ultimately decide against doing so. Forget it. We'll talk next time. Right now, a bit of alone time's just what I... Oh, you still haven't reached the classroom yet. Damn it. I unconsciously clench my fist as another familiar face enters my view. I can understand your desire to distance yourself from the fools, but you can't avoid them forever. Class is going to begin soon, with or without you. I take a deep breath and slowly exhale. After taking a few moments to calm myself down, I respond to Leisha in my usual manner, concealing my remaining annoyance as best I can. Yeah, I know. I'm well aware that the lesson won't be stalled for my sake, nor should it. I was thinking that we might not have class today, given the situation with our teacher, but if you're here, then perhaps it isn't the case. Oh, that woman will be removed from our class, alright. My father will be having a few words with her over the weekend, giving him time to think about who to replace her with and when. In all likelihood, the change will take place at the same time as our class reassignments. Class reassignments? I didn't hear anything about our classes changing. Well, it's really more of a merger than reassignment. I'm sure you've noticed the reduced number of students in our class as of late, have you not? Oh, not really. I don't know our classmates very well, and I usually sit at the front of the classroom, so I can't see who's not there. Fair enough. Had you paid more attention, you would have realised that we've already lost a handful of students from our class. In fact, all of the first year classes have, just as they do every year. Do you see where I'm going with this? Yeah, I believe so. All of the classes are being reduced in number. Once they're low enough, a few classes will merge, resulting in fewer classes than before. There's one thing I don't get though. Why are so many students leaving? This academy seems like a warm enough environment, and it's not like we're paying to be here. Man, trust a human to miss the obvious reason why a demi-human would leave the academy. The reason differs from student to student, but the main one seems to be that they miss their homelands. Don't forget, Sable, that many of the students attending Amadronia have never laid eyes on human architecture before, or slept indoors, or ordered food from a menu. This environment might be warm to you, but to some of the students in our grade, it's terrifying. Terrifying? An academy like this? I understand the meaning behind Leisha's words, but honestly, I can't see it. This is a safe place. We've got food, shelter, our own rooms. Our every need is catered for. What is there to be frightened of? Okay, maybe there's a bigger difference between myself and other students here than I thought. I haven't run into much trouble getting along with others since I've come here, but maybe that's because I've only spoken with a handful of other students. I'm not saying those students are the majority. Even of the students who have never visited human cities, many are able to adapt without great difficulty. Be that as it may, every year there are many students who fail to do so, and ultimately choose to leave the academy in order to return home. Yeah, I get it. It isn't as prevalent in human society, but the same thing does happen. Students move to the city from the countryside, or they attend a boarding school, or they study abroad. Some students adapt, and others grow homesick and leave early. I know it's not exactly the same, but human beings do go through similar transitions on occasion. No, perhaps they do. Leisha shrugs off my consideration, neither agreeing nor disagreeing with what I've said. So, what are you going to do? Are you going to join the rest of the classmates, or bide your time elsewhere? Good question. Whether Eris is going to continue teaching us or not, I can't say I'm in the mood to sit through one of her lackluster classes right now. Still, I don't want to make a habit of skipping class. I'm just going to stick around for the time being. Who knows? Maybe Eris will surprise us and actually teach us something. It would seem that you're more optimistic than I am. I, for one, highly doubt that anything productive is going to come of this. Nonetheless, we're students, and we're here to learn. We ought to at least give our teacher the benefit of the doubt. Back to class. Hoping for the best, but also preparing for the worst, Leisha and I sit side by side as we wait for class to begin. Surprisingly, our teacher shows up on time, or at least close to it. For once, Eris is not the last one to arrive, which is enough to elicit gasps of shock from some of the less tactful students. Furthermore, she does not sign exasperation upon entering the room, nor does she berate us in any way. Our teacher barely utters a word as she enters the room, and from that point on, everything she says is relevant to the lesson at hand. It would seem that Eris does possess the makings of a teacher after all. It's kinda odd. Eris seems like a completely different person today. Did the principal speak to her already? I can't imagine that he had time to speak with Eris at length since the departure of Leisha and I. Maybe he gave her another warning before calling Leisha and I to his office? Pondering Eris' sudden change in behaviour, I remain silent as I watch her call the class's attention to her expanded terminal at the front of the room. Guiding our eyes as she speaks, Eris explains the basics of spiritual magic while using a variety of visual cues, and showing us famous representations of how these spells are thought to work on a very low level. It's a surprisingly difficult topic, considering that it's being taught to first-year students. Even with visual aids, the majority of students find it exceptionally difficult to visualize how magic actually works, especially in the case of spiritual magic. Nonetheless, Eris persists. She explains everything thoroughly, answers the questions posed to her, and continues to address the topic until we all at least have a rudimentary understanding of the topic at hand. Wow, so the succubus can teach after all. Anyone who can keep the class's attention while teaching them such boring subject matter can't be that bad as a teacher. I never thought I'd say this, but yeah, I agree. She's not a bad teacher. I'd rather have her take her other classes more seriously too, but if this is a sign of things to come, I'm not going to complain. Don't get ahead of yourself. There's still that little matter we discussed with my father, you know. Oh, yeah. This might be a case of Eris doing too little too late. It's a shame, but that's just how it goes. Really, why couldn't she put this much effort right from the beginning? What could she possibly gain from treating us with contempt, only to then turn the other cheek when she's on the verge of being fired? Maybe it's a last-ditch effort to save her job. That still doesn't explain her behaviour until this point. If she's capable of teaching, and even decided to become a teacher, why show such hostility toward her students? Your guess is as good as mine. Leaving the matter of Eris' attitude problem alone for the time being, I'll wait in silence for the break to come to an end. Eris' behavioural shift might be a surprise to me, and her attitude is a mystery, but neither of those things change the fact that she's unlikely to retain her position in the academy. In all likelihood, Eris is soon going to be fired, and this class will gain a teacher who puts in their best for every lesson. not because they fear for their job, but out of a sense of duty or a desire to help others. Whatever changes she makes now, Eris's fate is already in Iron's hands. Is she gonna get sacked? As Eris's enthusiasm begins to wane and her lessons return to normal, I decide that it's time for me to take my leave. Bidding Alicia farewell, I exit the classroom and make my way down the corridor. With most students already waiting in their classrooms, the hallways are utterly devoid of life. There's noise coming from the individual classrooms at first, but as each class's respective teacher shows up, they naturally begin to quieten down. Before long, the hallways are silent, and I'm completely alone. Man, it feels kind of weird. The hallways are so peaceful and empty. I could usually only experience this late at night, when everybody else is asleep. It doesn't feel as eerie as it does at night time, but even so, it's a bizarre feeling. Harbouring strange thoughts about the academy buildings, I make my way to the library. Upon entering the library, I notice no change in volume. As expected of a library, the entire place is dead silent, even more so than the hallways. It isn't until I pass by the counter that I finally notice the presence of another being. Oh, what have we got here? Well now, if this isn't a naughty junior student skipping class. Bored by the conventional education offered by your teacher, Sable. A wry smile forms on my face, not a response to Jorah calling me a naughty junior, but because of her description of Amadronia's curriculum as conventional. Compared to the things I research on my own, Eris's teachings could certainly be considered mundane. Considering that we've only just started our first year at the academy, however, that's to be expected. If all of Amadronia's first-year students were immediately inundated with lessons on unorthodox areas of study, they likely quit before the end of the first week. What can I say? I'm a sucker for the bizarre. You're attracted to the bizarre? You mean, you have a thing for silicon-based lifeforms? You know what I mean. I quickly recover my mouth as I remember where I am. Surprisingly, Jolly doesn't seem to mind. If anything, the academy librarian seems thoroughly amused by my outburst. Sorry. Yeah, don't be sorry. That's exactly the reaction I wanted. There's nobody else here anyway. Even if you shout, no one's going to be disturbed. Even so, it feels wrong to shout in a library. It's fine, don't worry. This library belongs to me. If I say it's okay for you to shout, then there's no problem. Though Jolly's assertion that the library is hers surprises me somewhat, I pay it little mind. If the academy librarian wants to control the library, then I have no problem with it. All I ask is for permission to enter the library and to study the materials held within. All joking aside, is there a particular reason for your visit today? If you have a specific book or topic in mind, I'm happy to help. Thanks for the offer, but I didn't come here with any real goal. I just figured that I'd get more done if I studied in here by myself, rather than endure another lesson from Eris. Oh yeah, I'd forgotten that she was your teacher. My condolences. It's fine, she probably won't be my teacher for much longer anyway. Oh, you changing class? I suppose it's nearing that time. That time? Joru nods. Every year, the herd is thinned fairly early on. Students get homesick, or realise that Amadronia isn't what they'd imagined, or decide that the curriculum is going to be too much. Students drop out, a dozen at a time, swiftly dropping the number of first years to a fraction of what it was before. It isn't uncommon for more than half of the first year students to drop out before the end of the first month. Half? Seriously? Wow, I heard that our classes would likely be merged as students left, but I didn't realise it was that extreme. Well, it's not as though the number remains that low, and it's entirely possible that your grade won't lose that many. Don't forget that other students might still transfer in from other academies or other locations. Yeah, that's true. Either way, that isn't what I was alluding to. Truth be told, I don't think Eris is going to be teaching here for much longer. Oh my, now that is surprising. You're surprised that Eris might be getting fired? Oh no, not at all. I saw that coming a mile away. What surprises me is that you'd start spreading rumours about your teacher. I hadn't pegged you as that kind of person, Sable. Oh, you've got me. I guess it isn't like me. It's more than just a rumour though. I was speaking to the principal about her myself. You have influence over that man? I wouldn't put it quite like that. I'm friends with his daughter, and he seems to acknowledge my potential. If nothing else, I'd say I'm a first-year student whom he monitors more closely than others. Oh, I see. So you got closer to his daughter in order to gain access to the principal's ear. That's quite a cunning side of you, Sable. I might have underestimated you. Please stop assuming that all of my actions carry such sinister intent. Oh, don't worry, I'm not chastising you. If anything, I consider this to be high praise. It took me years to earn the man's trust. I'm amazed that you were able to do so in such a short amount of time. Like I said, as soon as I begin to speak that sentence, I stop myself. Jolu clearly isn't listening to me. She seems to be under the impression that I'm secretly quite devious, and that my actions all stem from personal greed. Hurtful though her impression may be, I'm not going to waste energy trying to argue with her. At any rate, I'm not going to be surprised if Eris stayed on as my teacher for much longer. If what you said about half of the students in my grade leaving turns out to be true, then I can't imagine that she'd be one of the new first-year teachers not to be reassigned elsewhere. Yeah, I suppose reassignment is the more likely outcome, as opposed to Eris being fired. So, what's the plan? Are you going to continue to skip class until she's fired or reassigned? Nah, maybe just a class here and there. I can usually concentrate on something else during class anyway, so even if she doesn't want to teach, it's not that big of a deal. My classmates are the ones who are hard to block out. Some of them are well behaved, but others are just... You dislike your classmates more than your teacher? It's kind of surprising, considering that you're being taught by Eros. It's not that I particularly dislike them, they're just distracting. With a teacher like Eris, who doesn't attempt to control the class at all, they're often permitted to do whatever they want. The only time she ever takes control is when she forcibly puts them under her command, and that's an entirely different problem in and of itself. It sounds like you got your hands full in there. Perhaps I'll be seeing you here more often than I anticipated. I mean, I'm afraid so, at least in the short term. Oh, but don't let me get in your way. You're here to work, right? I can search the library's catalogue myself, so you don't need to worry about helping me. Don't be silly. Assisting students with their studies is part of the job. More often than not, I'm doing little more than slowly digitising books at my leisure, or reading them myself. My workload is really a burden. If you say so. I didn't really come here with any particular subject in mind, though. In that case, might I suggest reading up on the genealogy of basilisks? Before you came in, I was partway through the most interesting book on uncommon demi-human races and their origins. Basilisks does sound interesting. But if we're talking about rare species, I think I'd rather learn about dragons. I have a friend who's half dragon, so learning more about dragons seems like a natural thing to do. You know someone who's half dragon? Oh, haven't I mentioned her before? There's a girl in my grade called Dragon. She's half dragon, half human. Half dragon? Huh. Jolo repeats my words mindlessly, as though she's trying to come to terms with what I've just said. Her surprise is only natural. Dragons are creatures of legend, thought by many to be extinct, or to have never existed in the first place. It would be more of a surprise if Jolo didn't find my claim to be odd. Regardless, I don't think the books here are going to be much help to you if you seek knowledge pertaining to dragons. If you want to learn about dragons, you should probably ask your friend directly. Oh, does this library not have many books about dragons? Jolo shakes her head. Quite the opposite, in fact, I'd say there's too much information about them. It's impossible to sift through it all, or to know which books contain the truth and which are fiction. For all we know, they could all be wrong. So if you truly do know someone who's half dragon, I'd advise you to ask them directly. Anything they tell you will be far more likely to be accurate. When you put it like that, I can't disagree with you, and Dragon is very direct when we ask her. But Dragon would be in class right now. I can't ask her. Then perhaps you'd be better off researching basilisks after all. Okay, I get it. You find basilisks interesting. Please, kind librarian, recommend me a book on basilisks. It would be my pleasure. Okay, and that is another session of this game. I don't know if our teacher's going to get sacked or not, but hopefully we'll find out soon. This is Usho signing off, and hopefully I'll see you next time.